Hello and welcome. Today we are going to talk about how to use an all-in-one wireless panel from alarm.com to arm and disarm the Optex CHeKT Bridge. And the reason we would do this, the reason you would want to do this, let's say that you have a 2 gig a GC2 on a site, and you also have um, cameras from another manufacturer like Uniview, Hikvision, Hanwha. And you want the cameras to be the trigger source. You want those analytics on the camera to actually trigger the alarm on the outside. But on the inside, you want to use the 2 gig. Well, to unify this into one solution, to do that way, you would actually have to have this 2 gig arm and disarm the bridge in parallel if you wanted them to be connected to each other. Now, if you aren't going to use camera analytics and you just plan on using wireless sensors like motion detectors, contacts, glass breaks, you don't have to do any of what we're talking about today. We actually have a feature called 2-minute playback, and I can use any wireless zone, any zone on a panel, wireless or hardwired, to bring in a video through the automation platform of my central station. So if you don't plan on using analytics, this probably isn't the way for you. But if you do need the bridge to follow the arming state of this panel, you would need to do this. Now also keep in mind, this is specific for wireless panels. Your hardwired panels like a Vista, DSC, or DMP, they don't need anything like this because I can either use a voltage change from the arming input on a panel, or I can use a hardwired output, which would do what we're doing today. Because these hardwired outputs don't exist on these two panels, that's why we're doing it this way. But if you do have a hardwired output, you don't need to do it this way. 2 gig edge, for example, I don't have it on this page. It has an open collector, and you can use that open collector to arm and disarm the CHeKT bridge with it. So this method isn't necessary for it, but you may want to use it, and you could still use it for an edge or any hardwired panel. But just to show you what we're doing. So high level, what we're going to do is I'm going to take this alarm.com wireless panel, and through Z-Wave, I'm going to add a Z-Wave relay, like this MIMO Lite or a Zeus wireless relay. So it's going to, through Z-Wave, it's going to learn in like a light, and I'm going to create rules on the alarm.com account to follow the arm status of this panel, so that when this arms, the relay will then have an on-off low dry contact that will go into the arming pin of this bridge, this CHeKT bridge. And when we arm and disarm, we'll create the rules in alarm.com to where the bridge will, in tandem, arm and disarm with this alarm.com panel. So that's a high level of what we're doing. Here's the wiring. So I'm using a Zeus, a Z-Wave relay, and I'm using this normally open, so you can be normally opened or normally closed. I'm using normally open and my common, and I'm running this normally open into the arming pin of the bridge, and then I'm running the common into ground, so that ground is shared with this 12 volt with the power of the bridge. So my 12 volt power source, I'm sharing the ground with the common of this low voltage of this dry contact. So that's what it would look like hardwiring it. You'd simply, once you wire that all up, you click that back into the bridge, and then you can start programming everything. The two devices that you would look for, one is the Fortress MIMO Lite, which has one dry contact relay, and then another one that works really well is the Zeus 700. This Zeus, it can't be found through distribution. It can only be found through retail, but it is a pretty cool little device. It has multiple relays, and you can do multiple. It can do more than the MIMO Lite, but for alarm.com, only the output 1 is going to show up and be controllable. You can't control the 2 outputs on here, or the 2 outputs. You can see I have 2 options, so it's essentially going to be a 1-channel relay. They both will be 1 channel. So now I'm going to go to the programming of the CHeKT. For now, I'm going to program on the alarm.com side. So I'm going to go ahead and delete out these rules that I made the other day. So I'm going to add a new rule. I'm going to do event triggered rule. And name the rule CHeKT disarm. And I'll say do not edit. It's real important because the automations can be changed by the end user in the alarm.com cloud, that you make sure that they know not to mess with this. So I'm putting a note on there, do not edit, so that the end user knows not to edit. And it's going to be a light rule. And then I'm going to do, when this event occurs, arm disarm. And I'm not going to use the main house. I'm actually going to use my partition 2. So when my partition 2, which is my backyard, arms or disarms, I am going to turn off indefinitely my relay. So that's going to be my checked channel 1. I'm going to say at all times. Now, you don't have to do a partition. Of course, the GC2 doesn't support a second partition. But for my application, a second partition works. I can arm and disarm it independently of my main house, of the house. It gives me that ability. But of course, you could do this a couple of ways. You could say arm stay or arm away. So maybe arm away only, the cameras only come on arm away. So there's different ways you can do this, and you can play around with it. But I'm not going to make a difference between arm away and arm stay for my cameras. I'm just going to have, if it arms, arm the bridge. And I'll show you what that looks like. So I'll go ahead and save that rule. I've got my disarm. So off will be disarm and on will be armed. So we'll create another rule. We'll say checked arm stay, do not edit. Lights, arm. We'll do arm stay. Turn on indefinitely. Check channel 1. And then we'll save that rule. So now I have my arm, my disarmed rule, and my, look, I messed up on there. Go back to the legacy. And I'm going to say backyard. So my backyard, that's the one we want. And I'll do final one. Checked, arm away, do not edit. Arm away. Save that. So now I have all of my rules. I have all my rules saved. Another thing to keep in mind, make sure that they understand not to turn on and on these relays. I would name it possibly do not edit, or something that they would know not to mess with, so they don't, because doing that would turn on and off it would arm and disarm the bridge. So make sure that they don't mess with that also. So now that that's set, we can go over to the CHeKT dealer portal. Now I'm going to go to programming. No. And you can see currently I have it to CHeKT video security system, which would be the CHeKT.com app controlled. But if I want to do panel pairing, I would simply go to alarm panel pairing. Primary individual, so primary would mean that this bridge would follow the armings, that if you put more bridges on the site, this bridge would follow those as well. So if you had one connected to this, you wouldn't have to buy multiple Z-Wave modules, just one. And then all the other bridges on the site would follow. But we're just going to go do individual. So if you needed certain zones to arm with certain relays, you could do it that way. We're just going to say individual for now. And then high voltage arming would be for normally closed, and low voltage would be for normally open. I mean, it really depends on what you want to do here, but I would just, however way you wire it up, normally closed, normally open, just make sure you follow that correctly. You'll know if it works by testing it in a few minutes, but I'll click my low voltage arming because it is normally open, so it will normally have the voltage. So boom, we'll do that. To make sure everything looks right, you can go into it. You can see that alarm.com is currently armed and the bridge is currently armed, so it looks like they're working. The low voltage was the correct one. I'm going to disarm just to check that to see if it goes in the right area. So there you go. It went to the correct voltage and it disarmed. I'm going to try that one more time with stay. The voltage should change. So if you see some voltage issues, you can check to make sure your voltage is going in the correct range, but default should work. But if it doesn't, you can adjust your voltage. So we'll do that. Going to disarm that. Close this out. We go to site devices. So here you can see the bridge is this home bridge, the one that's connected to that relay, is disarmed. Now I'm going to arm the backyard, which should arm this. We'll arm stay. We'll test it this way too. So that just armed up and the bridge just armed in tandem. Now we are going to disarm that and the bridge disarmed in tandem. Now let's arm away, see if that works. It worked. Disarm. Perfect. Now I'm just going to make sure that the main house doesn't arm it up. So you can see that didn't do anything. And I'm using a Qolsys for this right now, so the Qolsys panel allows me to do the partitions. But that's how it works in a nutshell. So you would just wire up the relay that's connected to the bridge and learn it as a light, and then adjust the settings on alarm.com. And that will allow you to use that wireless panel with Z-Wave and control the arming state of your bridge. Keep in mind this will require the automation package from alarm.com. But after that, it should work. If you have any questions, give me a call, leave a message on the video, whatever. I'd be glad to help answer it.